Halo: Combat Evolved revolutionized first-person shooters and launched Xbox as a legitimate console platform while introducing players to the expansive universe of Master Chief and the ancient Forerunner legacy. The game opens with the UNSC Pillar of Autumn, fleeing the defeated planet Reach, carrying Spartan 117 and the AI Cortana as part of Operation Red Flag, a desperate plan to capture a Covenant ship and trace its leadership before Covenant forces could strike Earth. When the ship crash lands near a mysterious ring world, players discover that this ancient construct serves as both a weapon of unimaginable power and a last resort against the parasitic flood. Exploration reveals control rooms, hidden archives, and derelict facilities that hint at a civilization that chose extinction over surrender to the parasite. The ring is a quarantine facility and containment measure on a galactic scale. The narrative establishes the core mythology that would define the franchise for decades. The Covenant appear as a unified religious alliance bent on activating Halo's galaxy clearing power because they mistake extinction for transcendence. The revelation that Halo was designed to starve the Flood by eliminating all sentient life reframes the stakes and paints the ring as a desperate containment measure rather than a divine escalator. Combat Evolved also introduces 343 Guilty Spark, an officious monitor whose guidance conceals a cold logic that values protocol over life. The uneasy partnership between Chief and Cortana becomes the emotional anchor, mixing tactical collaboration with a growing trust that pays off in quiet dialogue as much as in firefights. Combat Evolved's mechanical identity blends readable firefights with bold vehicle integration. The game pairs regenerating energy shields with a traditional health system that depends on medkits, which turns each push to a health station into a little story of patience and hazard. The strict two-weapon carry limit forces real choices about range, ammo types, and synergy, and the clean roll of each gun makes counters easy to parse. Classic set pieces like the silent cartographer Beachhead, the library's Grim Gauntlet, and the frantic Warthog escape Combine Agency and spectacle in ways that were rare on consoles at the time. The technical achievement of rendering expansive exterior spaces in large AI groups on the original Xbox set a visual standard for the platform. Art direction contrasts human hardware with monumental Forerunner geometry to create legible silhouettes and memorable vistas that remain readable at a glance. Martin O'Donnell and Michael Salvatore's monastic chants and driving percussion became a calling card for the series, signaling mystery, heroism, and the quiet dread of ancient ruins. Multiplayer at launch focused on split screen and LAN. It still managed to define a generation of dorm rooms and living rooms through balanced spawns, vehicles that felt like toys and tools, and maps that rewarded power position play. Blood Gulch and Hang 'em High became household names, and System Link parties grew into the bones of a future online scene that Halo 2 would popularize. Halo 2 expanded the universe's scope and introduced online console matchmaking to the mainstream. The campaign alternates between Master Chief and a disgraced elite known as the Arbiter, giving a look inside Covenant belief and politics, while the war spills onto Earth. That duality widens the story from a human survival tale to a complicated drama about faith, guilt, and the costs of leadership as the Covenant hierarchy begins to fracture under the weight of its own lies. Earth invasion sequences add urgency, while showcasing smarter enemy behaviors and large-scale battles that arc through New Mombasa and the ruins that follow. The Arbiter's chapters slow down the pace and dig into the machinery of Covenant hierarchy, exposing the Prophet's manipulation of the elite and the rise of the Brutes as new enforcers. Both threads converge on Delta Halo and High Charity, and the late arrival of the Gravemind reframes the conflict with a voice from a much older war. The final scene cuts hard, a cliffhanger that sends the Chief back to Earth with a promise to finish the fight. Halo 2 revises movement and vehicles in ways that affect everything. Improved physics sell the weight of warthogs and ghosts, and the debut of boarding lets players seize enemy rides mid-brawl. Dual wielding opens pistol and SMG combinations that let you sculpt damage and recoil for specific ranges, while the sandbox holds together through scarcity and clear rolls. The sniper duels on Lockout and objective clashes on Zanzibar set a tempo that would define console competition for years. Xbox Live matchmaking turns Halo into a persistent community. Skill-based ranks, voice chat, friends lists, and party systems take what had been a LAN ritual and push it onto a nightly global stage. Map names become shared language, and the rhythm of spawn timing, power position control, and weapon cycles becomes common knowledge across continents. Technically, the engine leans on dynamic lighting and strong material definition to sell scale. The soundtrack mixes choral motifs with guitar lines from Steve Vai to underline the strange blend of ancient mystery and modern steel that sits at the heart of Halo. Halo 3 closes the original trilogy with big set pieces, bigger stakes, and the tools that would supercharge its community. The campaign ends the Human Covenant War through an uneasy alliance with the elites and a desperate plan to light a replacement ring at the Ark, purging the Flood in its vicinity without destroying the rest of the galaxy. It is a finale about cooperation, sacrifice, and the idea that an old weapon can become a new kind of salvation if you understand it well enough. Battles jump from coastal defenses to jungle ambushes and scarab duels before returning to a new installation 04, and then the Ark. A Forerunner foundry that can create halos on demand. A rescue inside the twisted corridors of High Charity frees Cortana at last, and the final escape seals the Flood's fate for now. The ending leaves Master Chief sleeping in a drifting ship, a myth made literal, and Cortana promising to wake him when needed. Forge and Theater change how a console shooter lives after release. Forge lets players place objects and tweak existing maps in real time, creating arenas, racetracks, puzzles, and new modes that spill across file shares. Theater records matches and campaign moments for reviewing strategies, making machinima, or just capturing a ridiculous stick. Together, these systems turn players into collaborators and critics instead of only consumers. Multiplayer supports up to 16 players and keeps a tight balance between movement speed, aim assist, and the cadence of grenades. Ranked and social playlists sit side by side, while campaign supports 4-player online co-op that makes set pieces feel like a weekend sport. The audio and visuals play in step, with particle-heavy battles and choral swells that never drown out the sound of a BR burst or the ping of a picked-up overshield. Halo 3 changes scale and mood. You are an ODST rookie, searching a dark, rain-washed New Mombasa for your scattered squad after a hot drop goes wrong. A quiet hub world connects flashback missions that let you piece together what happened to Buck, Dutch, Romeo, Mickey, and Dare. The noir vibe, rain-slick streets, and jazz-inflected score create a tone unlike any other entry while keeping the same core of readable combat puzzles. Mechanically, ODST trades Spartan shielding for a stamina layer over a vulnerable health bar, which makes every encounter a study in angles, ammo conservation, and smart use of suppressed weapons. Firefight debuts as a cooperative survival mode that stresses teamwork and economy under skull modifiers. The audio logs that tell Sadie's story ground the invasion in civilian experience and reward patient exploration of the city at night. Halo Wars shifts to a top-down view while staying recognizably Halo, set decades before Halo CE. It follows Captain Cutter, Professor Anders, Sergeant Forge, and Spartan Red Team aboard the Spirit of Fire as they confront early Covenant fleets and uncover Forerunner superstructures. Ensemble Studios built controls that make selection, production, and special abilities readable on a gamepad, and the push-pull between infantry, vehicles, and aircraft preserves Halo's combined arms, feeling at a new scale. Story beats emphasize distance and sacrifice. Forge's fate, Anders' curiosity for Forerunner keys, and Cutter's pragmatism underline how many lives and choices stand behind the skirmishes that the shooter campaigns portray. Multiplayer leans on crisp counters and base placement, and the cinematics give the war a polished, almost documentary sheen that still reads as Halo, rather than a different series wearing its clothes. Halo Reach tells a story everyone already knows. The fall of Reach is baked into the opening of Halo, so the game focuses on the people who refuse to leave a doomed world without giving everything they can. Noble Team is a set of distinct voices whose banter and battlefield competence sell the idea that Spartans are not just tanks, but teammates who take pride in craft. Moments like the space strike in Long Night of Solace and the desperate holdouts on Tip of the Spear make the inevitable feel personal rather than abstract. Armor abilities change how you approach a fight without replacing the core. Sprint closes gaps, jetpacks break sightlines, active camo creates ambushes, and armor lock buys a second chance at the cost of being a stationary target. The credit system rewards play with cosmetic options that make your Spartan feel like a career rather than a mannequin. Space missions and massive ground ops showcase the engine and give O'Donnell's last Halo score room to move from melancholy to fire. Invasion pits elites against Spartans in phases that unlock new routes and objectives as attackers push forward. The matchmaking suite respects both ranked competition and relaxed social sessions, and the daily and weekly challenges create gentle goals that keep the population in motion without fracturing the playlists. Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary remasters the original campaign with new art and audio while leaving collision and AI untouched. Toggling between classic and remastered visuals in an instant is a respectful museum trick that teaches as it entertains. Lore terminals tie early events to later revelations about the Forerunners, the Flood, and the purpose of the Ring Network. And Skulls provide optional modifiers that let players remix difficulty with oddball twists. The new art sharpens edges and lighting in places that were abstract on the original hardware. Snow looks cold, jungle looks humid, and Forerunner corridors carry more texture, but the geometry that drives combat flow is identical. The music and effects target modern equipment, but do not overwrite the performances that made Lines memorable, which preserves the identity of the original, while making it easier to revisit. Halo 4 shifts focus from a war to a relationship. Chief's competence is never in doubt, but his role as a person who has to watch his only constant companion unravel becomes the point. Cortana's rampancy introduces a tragic clock that clicks louder as you fight across Requiem against Promethean constructs who bend space and deny revives with Watcher tricks. The Librarian's exposition adds deep time context, and the composer's strike on New Phoenix shows the Didact's philosophy turned into action with chilling clarity. The Didact represents an old argument about who should rule and who should serve. His disdain for humanity gives the game a villain with philosophical teeth and personal history. Spartan Ops extends the story in weekly chapters, letting groups run missions that tie into the politics and staff dynamics aboard the UNSC Infinity, while introducing new threats and leaders in the Spartan 4 ranks. Multiplayer modernizes presentation and progression while keeping the emphasis on starts, sightlines, and timing that define Halo's competitive rhythm. Halo, Spartan Assault, keeps Halo's vocabulary but teaches it a new syntax. Overhead missions feature familiar weapons, Covenant silhouettes, and brief vehicle sections across snowfields, deserts, and ruined temples. Sarah Palmer and Edward Davis serve as connective tissue to the Spartan 4 program and the Infinity, and medals, skulls, and score multipliers encourage replay for cleaner routes and higher ranks. It is a side path that still threads through canon without overreaching. Halo 2 Anniversary arrives in the Master Chief Collection with a campaign that looks and sounds new while acting exactly like the 2004 original. Blur Studios' cinematics and terminal entries lay groundwork for the Forerunner arc explored by 343. 6 remastered multiplayer maps run in a modern engine that captures Halo 2's speed and balance, with a 7th, Remnant, added later as free DLC. The package also includes the classic versions and the other numbered campaigns in one library. Halo, Spartan Strike, is a cleaner, faster twin-stick follow-up framed as Oni training that parallels events from Halo 2. Abilities like the deployable shield and the emphasis on quick objective play give it a distinct rhythm, and the weapon roster translates Halo feedback into taps and sweeps that feel good on a top-down plane. It trims fat, improves control feel, and shows that the format can be more than a single experiment. Halo 5, Guardians, spreads the narrative across 2 fire teams and asks whether imposed peace is any peace at all. Locke's hunt for Chief intersects with Cortana's claim that the galaxy would be safer if synthetic Guardians enforced order. Old friendships and new obligations collide, and the script lets squad banter do as much character work as the cutscenes. Blue Team returns with Kelly, Linda, and Fred, while Osiris features Locke, Vale, Tanaka, and Buck, whose one-liners carry over from his ODST days without breaking tone. Designing every mission for 4 Spartans changes pacing. The revive system and the mobility suite speed rotations and open new lines, while encounters lean on verticality and flanking rather than only holding lanes. Arena is a tight competitive ladder with precise starts and small maps that reward discipline. And Warzone brings 24 player battles with AI bosses and requisitions that add macro decisions to loadouts and vehicle timing. Forge upgrades ensure that custom modes never run dry and give creators room to experiment with rules and geometry. Halo Wars 2 introduces Atriox and the Banished, who turn Covenant technology into an efficient industry of war. The Spirit of Fire awakens near the Ark and finds an opponent with no patience for liturgy and no fear of attrition. Cutter's crew fights with experience and invention rather than superior equipment, which gives the campaign a tone of veteran stubbornness that fits the years they have lost to cryosleep. The AI Isabel adds a pragmatic voice to the command deck, pushing for bold plays against an enemy that hits supply lines as hard as it hits fortifications. The Banished look and doctrine are practical. Red and steel pallets, visibly repaired armor, and modular bases speak to a faction that prefers tools over trophies. Leader powers and expanded unit rosters create expressive counters, while Blitz mode takes the RTS loop and condenses it into deck-driven fights that emphasize tempo and resource awareness. The narrative sets the chessboard for Halo Infinite by giving the next mainline villain a proven resume and a battered yet confident army. Halo Recruit is a short Windows mixed reality tutorial that introduces Halo in VR. It is essentially a firing range and character encounter showcase with a brief tour of UNSC weapons and friendly faces. Players handle rifles and pistols in a controlled environment, watch familiar enemies at human scale, and get a taste of the series' soundscape inside a headset. There is no full campaign or locomotion challenge here. The goal is orientation and accessibility for a new medium, a small first step that demonstrates what Halo assets feel like in 3 dimensions around you. Halo: Fireteam Raven brings Halo to arcades with a mounted light gun experience for up to 4 players. Set during the events of Halo CE, it has you fight alongside the Chief through the chaos of the Autumn's escape, surface battles, and flood outbreaks. Raw thrills and play mechanics build a cabinet that makes every explosion a communal laugh and every boss a reason to cheer. And the level scripting keeps communication and target sharing at the center of success. The format favors spectacle, but the details remain authentic. Covenant weapon sounds, the weight of Warthog turrets, and the look of Forerunner interiors all land despite the change in input and context. Raven proves that Halo's identity is robust enough to survive translation to a social setting full of flashing lights and noisy floors, and it acts as a friendly ambassador for players who may never touch a console at home. Halo Infinite walks a line between old and new. Zeta Halo gives you a stitched quilt of ridgelines, outposts, and Forerunner ruins where you can choose to hunt targets, rescue squads, and capture bases between main missions. The Grapple Shot turns movement into a toy box, letting you scale towers, steal vehicles in motion, and chain a swing into a punch that would have been impossible in earlier games. Other equipment pieces, like the threat sensor, drop wall, and thruster, provide situational tools that reward timing and map knowledge. Narratively, the Banished dominate the ring while echoes of Cortana's fate haunt nearly every discovery. The weapon steps into the role of partner with a mix of curiosity and caution that keeps Chief grounded through grief and recovery. Audio logs and environmental clues sketch out the fall of the Infinity and the desperate resistance that tried to slow Atriox's forces. Boss encounters test grapple timing and equipment use in arenas that feel like puzzle boxes rather than bullet sponges. Multiplayer is free to play and aims for clarity. Equal starts, visible equipment, and map control return as core values. The Battle Pass does not expire. Customization avoids loot box randomness, and the sandbox blends classics with Banished tech that emphasizes burst control and utility. Big Team Battle leans into vehicle churn and long sightlines, while ranked arena prizes discipline, crossfire, and clean stabilizes.